Welcome to Rambam In-Depth. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchos Shvitas Yom Tov, Perek Zayin, Halacha Yud Gimmel. The Rambam rules that we also lifte the moed. You're not allowed to write during Chol HaMoed. And he says, "Afilu seforim tefillin and mezuzos," even seforim and even tefillin and mezuzah. And the only heter he gives a little bit later is that if he has to, Kesef other tefillin and mezuzah לעצמו, he could write for himself. He can't write for others. And if he doesn't have what to eat, he could even write Kesef acharonim. He can even write and sell it to others because he's so desperate. Parnasaso as much as he needs for his sustenance. So the Kesef Mishne on the words if he doesn't have what to eat, that's the only dispensation. So he says nira. It appears that the Rambam holds that you don't put tefillin on Yom Tov because it's included in Chol HaMoed, because it's included in Yom Tov. So why should you be allowed to write tefillin under normal circumstances? Like you can't write anything else, you can't write tefillin. And the only dispensation is if you don't have what to eat. But then the question is, why is it permissible to write it for yourself? You're not going to put on the tefillin of Chol HaMoed. So the Ritva and the Ran say that the reason why you can write the tefillin there is because you need to have them right after Yom Tov is over. You're going to have to put on tefillin. So from the Kesef Mishne, it's clear that he holds that the Shitas Rambam is that you don't put on tefillin on Chol HaMoed. The problem is that in Hilchos Tefillin, the Kesef Mishne seems to say the opposite. And the Rambam there writes in Perek Daled, Halacha Yud, that zman Hilchos Tefillin is b'yayim v'lay b'laylo. And then he says, Shabbos v'yamim tevim einam zman tefillin. Shabbos and Yom Tov is not a time for tefillin. So the Kesef Mishne writes, the Paskim, the argument about Chol HaMoed, sheyesh mehem einam the b'chal yamim tevim heim. Some say they're included in Yom Tov. Ve'im menicha behem tefillin. And you don't put on tefillin in Yom Tov. V'yesh eimrim shemenichin. And some say you do put on tefillin. Then he adds, and this is what appears from the words of the Rambam, he writes, Perek Zayin, Shvitas Yom Tov, Kesef other tefillin לעצמו, that a person could write tefillin for himself. It's mashma that if he can write tefillin, it's mashma that there is a chiyuv of tefillin. So the Kesef Mishne is medayed from the Rambam in two contradictory ways. So the Sefer Maaseh Rokeach and others say that the Kesef Mishne was referring to the first opinion when he said he's referring to the opinion that says b'chal yamim tevim heim. It's a little bit difficult to say that because he brings the Rambam's words, but the Rambam says Kesef other tefillin לעצמו. Instead he should have brought the first words that you can't write tefillin, but he brings the part that it's mashma that there is a chiyuv of tefillin. At any rate, from the Kesef Mishne, it's not clear which he holds. It's not clear which he wrote first. But Pashtus, he wrote Hilchos Tefillin before he wrote Hilchos Shvitas Yom Tov. So the Shvitas Yom Tov is the final opinion of the Kesef Mishne, that the Rambam holds that there is no chiyuv tefillin and you shouldn't put on tefillin during Chol HaMoed. There is also a simple diyuk, and it could be this is what the Kesef Mishne is referring to, when the Rambam writes that on Shabbos and Yom Tov you don't put on tefillin. So what is included in Yom Tov? So in Hilchos Shvitas Yom Tov, the Rambam says when he talks about the issur of hesped on Yom Tov, he includes the Shmeinas Yemei Chag and the 7 days of Pesach and other Yamim Tevim. So in other words, he includes the 8 days of Sukkot and the 7 days of Pesach in Yamim Tevim. And since he says in Yamim Tevim you don't put on tefillin, he doesn't give you any indication otherwise. It's mashma that Chol HaMoed is included in Yom Tov L'gabi not putting on tefillin. There's another question that's asked here. What about mezuzah? Why, if you can put on tefillin because you need the tefillin after Yom Tov, mezuzah you need during Yom Tov itself. So why can't you write mezuzahs for yourself? So the Sefer Binyan Shlomo says that mezuzah is not a chiyuv. What does that mean? It's not a chiyuv. There's a way of getting out of needing a mezuzah is by giving it away to a non-Jew, giving your house away to a non-Jew, and then borrowing it from him. So for the first 30 days, you don't need a mezuzah. So the mezuzah is not an absolute chiyuv. You can get out of it. Mashiach tefillin is a chiyuv. So even though you could also borrow tefillin, but a person wants to do a mitzvah, it's a hovas haguf. He wants to do a mitzvah with his own tefillin, and therefore he's allowed to write tefillin on Chol HaMoed for himself. whereas mezuzah, he does not allow to write. But as far as Chol HaMoed is concerned, it's mashma from the Rambam, and that's what many poskim say, that the Rambam holds that it's not as zman tefillin. However, others agree with the diyuk of the Kesef Mishne in Hilchos Tefillin that the Rambam holds it is as zman for tefillin, because the Rambam, they say, holds that Chol HaMoed's issur of malacha is only derabbanan, and since it's only derabbanan, then there's no din of Yom Tov on it to part you from tefillin. But from the Pashas lashon Rambam and the Kesef Mishne is medayik in Hilchos Shvitas Yom Tov is that Chol HaMoed is not as zman tefillin, and the Kesef Mishne in the Sefer Beis Yosef also brings the Zohar that says you're not allowed to put on tefillin in Chol HaMoed. And there's a whole shakla b'tarya if the Rambam was aware of the Zohar, and there are a lot of proofs that a lot of psakim of the Rambam are based on the Zohar. The only source, the exclusive source is Zohar, so it seems that the Rambam was aware of the Zohar, but the Rambam didn't want to write it beferish because it doesn't say beferish in the Gemara about tefillin on Chol HaMoed, so he relies on the diyuk that he says Yamim Tovim, Ken Yesh Lemar.